Howdy, and welcome back to the 80s. I'm your host, Hulk Hogan.
We've been hanging and banging, brother!
It's Qubo Day. Normally I like to do these series discussions off camera, but today was kind of special. Today we're going to be talking about two shows. Kinda. In my Qubo video, plugged it, I mentioned Denver the Last Dinosaur quite a bit. It was another Night Owl show that fascinated me as a kid. Now this show was rebooted, but I'll get to that in a bit. The era of cartoons I grew up on were a mix of the 90s and the 2000s, so finding something from the 80s was kinda weird to me. This wasn't the only one, but it probably was my favorite. Coming out hot off the trail of The Land Before Time and the 80s dino craze, Denver was another example of pure merch bait. I mean, look at all these rad and cool and sick nasty characters that can be made into toys. They didn't though, because they weren't that successful. All I could manage to find on eBay was this plushie and a bunch of VHS tapes. There is a store run by the company who made the show, and you know, it's got your standard t-shirts and mugs and stickers, and also this onesie, slipper, hoodie collection that look... I'm kinda glad they're sold out because I'd be having a bit of a crisis. The thing on this website that I'm most interested in are the original animation cells, but can't quite afford those, so... You know what though, let's do a little stretch goal promise. If by some chance this channel hits 10,000 subs, I'll buy a couple and show them off in a later episode. My set kinda needs more pizzazz. I got him, that's about it. I can't really put it on the door. Maybe I'll just put it in the gamer zone. Hey, maybe we should talk about the show. Denver the Last Dinosaur is about Denver. Don't say it. Please don't just repeat the title. Try to make something up. Just anything at all. Our pal Dino. He rides a skateboard, plays a guitar, and best of all... Denver, like the title suggests, is the last of his kind, and he's living it up in the 1980s. He, with the help of his new friends, Wally, Jeremy, Mario, and Shades, learns about this new world as the boys try to keep him safe from the nefarious Morton Fizback. Don't think it gets too crazy though, because it still teaches important lessons about the environment and the dangers of greed. The show was produced by World Events Productions and was headed by Voltron creator Peter Keefe. Like I said earlier, it was created to ride the high of the dino craze in the 80s, but it couldn't quite hold steady. It aired 50 episodes, starting September 12th of 88 and ending in November 22nd of the same year. It's got quite the cast, with Pat Fraley as Denver, Cam Clark as Mario and Shades, and Kath Soucie who played Casey and Heather, to name a few. I just want to point out a couple of the episode titles here. We've got video... Enter the Dino? Yeah, I don't think I will. Pluto needs people. Here, I thought Mars was in trouble without moms. Big Top Denver. He's my friend and a whole lot more, if you know what I'm saying. And finally, Carnival. That's it. We're gonna do some episode readouts, but before I do, I have to show you a bit of the intro theme. Mute the video if you don't want this stuck in your head for the rest of the day, because it's just... Oh, nope. Oh god, nope, there it is. Alright, that's probably the worst thing I've ever done. The first episode we'll talk about is the pilot, which is a double-length episode. The episode starts with our boys riding to a museum at the La Brea Tar Pits. Jeremy, despite looking like a jock, is actually the studious one of the group and decides to do some studying. Unfortunately, they're confronted by a group of bullies and a chase ensues. They hide away in a restricted area, and when Mario completely whiffs a bike jump, he accidentally cracks open a tar egg. Audience participation time! What do you think's inside the egg? It's a dinosaur. Audience participation time over. After instantly befriending him, they decide to come up with a name. They list off a couple and they don't really land, but they find the perfect one on the side of the bus. Ski Colorado. Rolls right off the tongue. Unfortunately, an evil businessman wants to put Denver in an evil rock show, so he plans a way to capture him. After a little too much licking, the boys hang out with Denver in Wally's pool house, and through some pure magic bullshit, Denver shows them flashbacks of his time. Of course, being an 80s cartoon, we cut back pretty quickly to some action as the guys are playing pool volleyball. The ball ends up rolling into the garage, and when Denver goes to retrieve it, we're introduced to another major character, Wally's sister Heather. They come up with a plan to stow him away in the old gymnasium, so they disguise him and... Damn, boy, he's double cheeked. They try to hide him in the gym, but that dinosaur is too stubborn, so they have to improvise. Unfortunately, after a group of hired bullies distract them, the evil businessman, Fizback, captures Denver. They chase after him, but don't make it far because they're children with bikes and he's a grown-ass man with a van. Heather finds a poster advertising Fizback's Dino Show and they head out to go rescue him. Denver's fucking rocking it though, so I don't really see why he'd want to go back to hiding. They try to stop Fizback from taking Denver to Japan for their world tour, but they end up being a little too late. Except, Denver wasn't taken to Japan and was instead taken to a college professor. Oh no. Luckily, there's a nice professor who lets Denver out and embarrasses the mean one. Denver makes his way home and finds the lads at the park. But for some reason, they're talking shit about him, and that makes him really upset. He is a pure boy, so when he hears his ex-friends being bullied again, he jumps in and helps them. And so, they took Denver home and... sorry. He gets caught again. But don't worry, Casey comes to the rescue. This is the first time I've brought her up, but she's the reason they still have Denver. She's helped them like 4 times alone in this episode. Fizback gets shipped to Australia and the group takes a picture to wrap it up. Okay, that was a long one. I'm going to talk about one more episode, just to kind of give you an example of how the normal episodes usually go down. Before I do that though, I need to mention something that's bugged me for a little bit. Near the end of the intro, this rock that says The Last Dinosaur on it smashes into the screen before settling back into the logo. But for Season 2, Episode 7 and on, it's just completely blank, and it's seemingly in multiple different recordings of it too. I don't think this will ever get answered, but I just want to throw the question out there to ask why. I wanted to choose a newer one because Denver seemingly changes over the series with his communication skills. So we'll be watching Season 2, Episode 14, The Comic Book Caper. The episode begins with Denver feeling like he's a prisoner in the pool house. Mario knows how to make him feel better, as he pitches the idea of taking him to a comic book convention to help combat his stir-craziness. They dress him up as Dino Man, an in-universe superhero that apparently is Denver's species, despite him being the first known dinosaur of his kind. At the event, they meet up with their robotic genius friend Freddy as they spot Fizback trying to sell his own comic, to no avail. I wanted to point out some of these heroes real quick. We've got Dino Man, Fishman, Cool Crusader, Strange Boy, Bugman, Super Cave Guy. Hey, speaking of Super Cave Guy, it's this universe's first ever comic book. And it's up for display at the convention. After the owner of said comic talks to the boys, Fizback performs a daring stunt by soaring across the convention center. Freddy saves him, but in the process, the first ever comic book goes missing. The owner offers a reward to whoever finds it, so the lads and Fizback race to find it first. The boys find a piece of the comic and use it to track down where it went, using another one of Freddy's bizarre inventions. At the same time, it falls out of a locker right in front of Fizback. However, the door to the locker room is shut tight, so no one can get in or out. Then, all of a sudden, the lights go out and Fizback is left screaming for help. Denver charges up to break down the door, but stops short and knocks it down with a single flick. They find him, but Fizback doesn't really seem to have the comic anymore. The owner gets super pissed at them and threatens to kick them all out, but Denver rips off his hair to reveal that he's bald, I guess? Oh, and also he stole the comic the whole time. They chase after him, but he gets in a real flying car. They all steal different goofy sci-fi vehicles, but all of them end up crashing and destroying each of the cars. And a bit of the building too. They're pretty accurate superheroes. An undercover cop arrests the guy for peddling a fake comic book, and the boys feel proud as they did all of that out of the good of their hearts, and not for monetary reward. There's the anti-greed message. And those are the episodes. They do something cool, somebody shows up and does something immoral, and they save the day by being good kids and having fun. It's pretty lighthearted, but oftentimes the lesson they're trying to teach is pretty forced. In that last episode, they said the same, "We do it because it's right" line like 6 times. Still, the characters are fun, the hand-drawn animations are great, the music bumps. Although I wouldn't recommend watching a bunch of episodes at once because they use that same melody in every backing track. I'll give it a 6. It was pretty fun. So like I said, this show only ran for about 2 months because of the dino craze slowing down. So naturally it ran some reruns on some over-the-air channels and faded off into obscurity. And then, 30 years later, it was rebooted. Now this is where it gets weird. Going by Denver the Last Dinosaur, Denver, and Denver and Cliff, it was rebooted in August of 2018 as 52 full CG animated episodes. Announced in 2015, this continuity reboot overhauled a lot of its source material. They reworked the plot, the characters, the world, the messages, the designs. Big Top Denver? More like bottom bit. I'm sorry, it's a kid's show. They still kept a couple of things, like some design motifs. It still takes place in like a West Coast area, and it keeps up with the multicultural cast the original series had. But other than that, it's a different show. At least I think it's a different show. The only place that I've been able to find potential full episodes is through a service called Crave, which I have never heard of before. I found it. Yeah, so about 75% of the way through editing the video, I found the entire series. Part of me wanted to pretend like I didn't find it at all because now I have to push back this video release, which hurts because I was really excited to get a video out earlier than a week. I'm gonna let past me talk a bit more about the show because I don't want to film that, but I'll cut in when I need to. I can't use it though because it's only available for use in Canada, so I guess I'm shit out of luck. Or am I? Yeah, I am. I'm not. At least as far as full episodes go. But there is the YouTube channel. At first I thought it was rebooted as like a YouTube web series, but after way too much digging and going through a bunch of like French news outlets, I found some pretty solid evidence that it was in fact a full series. Made by Zagtoon, the makers of the Miraculous series, the reboot was about Harry, not Cliff, and his adopted dino brother Denver as they hang out with their friends and learn and grow in their small town. It was produced by Jeremy Zag and Atan Somak? I probably mispronounced that, sorry. And was made with the help of Nexus Factory and U Media. Oh god, no, not again. There were 7 companies who worked on this film.
Hello with the ladies.
Losing my mind. I'm gonna let past me also talk about a couple of the webisodes, but I'm just gonna cut the clips portion because, well, I have the full episodes. The webisodes act as like a setup to this series. Harry's is about Denver's origins, Dan's is about Denver's superpowers, including strength, which the original had, a grappling tongue, and the ability to go invisible. Sure, yeah, super dinosaur. There's one about this lady, Miss Tucson, that's about her villainous motives, which is vanity rather than greed. Alright, you might be able to tell that this part isn't really scripted, but we're just gonna kind of go for it. So I actually kind of watched quite a few episodes, but we're just gonna talk about one today. I think between the series, aside from like the art style, the biggest difference in the shows is Denver himself. They're just 2 completely separate characters, both under the same name. Denver 1's origin is that he was put into stasis in like this tar egg, but for Denver 2, the main character's family just like finds a normal dinosaur egg and decides to like raise it. The plot differences as well are like super jarring, right? A lot of stuff in the original series is like fish out of water, keep this guy hidden kind of thing. But in the newer one, they don't do any of that stuff. Denver 2 was born in this time, so he's been able to like grow and develop and understand all these things. The other characters are pretty different as well. Remember Freddy? He's the main character, but instead of being a nerd, he's just an asshole. We have this really like smart writer girl, this kid who wants to be a superhero. We do still kind of get the bully characters, but instead of being like tough big kids, it's just like a rich preppy asshole. In both instances, Denver isn't really like a pet or a person. He's kind of in this weird limbo, kind of like a Pokemon, I guess. But in the newer one, it feels more like a concrete thing. Another big difference is between the character dynamics, especially between Denver and like his main friend. Denver and Wally, they're kind of generic with their friendship, but Denver and Harry have complexity to them. It's more interesting to watch, but it's not always enjoyable. Now, usually I talk about the first episode of every series, but in this one it really isn't that much different from the other ones. So I just chose one that sounded interesting. Episode 39, Being Denver. This episode is Freaky Friday, or Bill from Pokemon Red and Blue. I guess now is a pretty good time to mention that Harry's an inventor, but not like, oh, he makes robots, or like, in Freddy's case, he makes like a hand or like a launched out parachute. No, he just invents like teleportation and cloning. In another, he makes a serum to try to like create another dinosaur. The one from this episode is the teleporter. While Harry tests out the teleporter, Denver gets a little sidetracked and goes after the apple that's inside of it. Harry tries to get him away from it, but they end up both going through the teleporter together. At first everything's fine, but then everyone realizes things are a little messed up. You know, even though Harry's this genius inventor kid, he doesn't know how to manage his time, because on the same day that he was testing his teleportation device, this university scout was coming by to watch a demonstration of it. The scout that comes by is a character known as Mr. Runt. After stalling Mr. Runt for a bit, the kids end up having to go to school that day, and Mr. Runt decides to tag along to talk to their teacher. Speaking of school, there's a character here who doesn't actually do much in this episode, but he's a pretty major character everywhere else. It's that bully character I was talking about a little bit ago. He's not super special or anything, but I just wanted to comment that his name is Spooky. What kind of shitty parent would name their child Spooky? After they go home, Mr. Runt figures out that something weird is going on. He doesn't think they swapped bodies, he just thinks that Denver is super smart. After giving up on trying to convince Mr. Runt, Harry just tries to fix everything. So he runs the teleportation device again, and for some reason it hits everyone in the room because now they've all swapped bodies, including the adult, which is that's weird. Everything gets fixed at the end, but Harry doesn't end up going to that school. He sees it as a win though, because now he gets to stay with his friends. And that's it. It's pretty simple and short. Hi, it's future me. What my brain spat out after that was complete nonsense, and I ended up rambling for another 20 minutes instead of winding down the video. We're gonna stick to scripts for a while. Quick final thoughts. Harry's a prick, mostly to Denver, but also to his friends. The episodes feel more interesting in the reboot than the original, having these crazy inventions and more interesting group dynamics. In comparison to the original, the charm is way lower and the music isn't even a competition. But it ended up being a more interesting watch, at least from a story and character perspective. I'll give the reboot of Denver a 6 as well, because they're both just alright. This video's taken a lot out of me. I really hope you enjoyed it. The only thing I still don't know is why this show was rebooted. It doesn't make any sense. It lasted for 2 months, barely anybody watched it, and whatever. I'm gonna let past me do the outro because I don't have the energy for that right now. Oh, looks like I gotta get back into the ring. Hulk Hogan out.